Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Shelley Aldridge with Urban Associates,
And I'm Melissa Lieb with Lieb and Associates.
and we have here Tim Schelfe. We're so excited to have you on here. Tim Schelfe is the director of the interior design at BSB Designs in Charlotte. It's a national architecture and interior firm with 12 locations. Wow, I did not realize you had 12 offices located throughout the U.S. So you concentrate or work focused mainly on housing design, including multi-student, an important one now, senior living community design. That's a huge one, and single family residential. Tim's based in Charlotte, North Carolina office of BSB. Previously, just some background on Tim. He has worked in Austin, Texas, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. metro area, where he was born and raised. Tim is a fellow of the American Society of Interior Designers, NCIDQ, certified and licensed interior designer. Tim's been awarded with over 40 design awards for his work, including hospitality, commercial, residential, and multi-design projects. It's amazing. Tim has served twice as the ASID National Board of Directors and over 10 years on the Board of Directors for the ASID Carolinas chapters in 2007 as the ASID Carolinas chapter president. It's great. Tim lives in Charlotte now. We're glad to have you back with his wife, Ruth Ann, and often travels for work and for pleasure. Tim's traveled throughout Italy, China, Sweden, Austria, and the Caribbean. That's so great too. And finds travels as a way of experience different cultures and design. True. Tim is currently writing a book. Congratulations on his career and his journey in the design, and looking forward to having it published in 2023. That's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Thank you so much for jumping on with us this morning.
Well, absolutely, Shelley. Thank you. Melissa, thank you as well. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yes. So as you know, as I told you, we concentrate on lighting. And I think throughout my career, you've known that's been where I have focused on that. So it was good to have you on here from a designer standpoint with all the avenues that you've designed on to kind of bring some presence to that and get some feedback from you on that. So anyways, so would you like to give us a little bit, in case some of our listeners don't know a little bit about the ASID or, about the multi-housing, would you like to start a little bit about what you do? I know I described it, but.
Yeah, so I am Director of Interior Design for BSB Design, as you said. We're a national firm. We have 12 offices around the country. And for the last several years, our interior design studio has been based solely in Charlotte. About a year and a half ago, we acquired another firm, a third office now in California that has interior designers as well. So now we're represented on the East Coast and West Coast with interior design. But we've got a great team of designers in our Charlotte office as well as architects. We've got about 30 architects and a handful of interior designers, a good studio. It's funny, most of our work right now is not even in the Carolinas. We're working on projects in Texas, in Florida, in Alabama, in Nashville, Tennessee, Sacramento, California. So what's good about working for a national firm is a lot of our projects are around the country. As interior designers, we get to work in a lot of different buckets. The firm focuses mostly on housing. It's a 60-year-old firm. We've been around 60 years. For architecture, interiors is only about 5 years old for our firm, so relatively young on the interior design side. But we focus on housing, a lot of multifamily housing, both low rise to mid rise to high rise multifamily. We also do student housing design. We've done quite a lot of that around the country, and senior living. We're also doing a lot of single family. That's kind of the roots of where the company started, was single family design. We do a lot of work with some very large national developers. And the newest market that's really kind of taken off over the past year or several years now, but really it's pretty strong, is built for rent single family, where people are building single family communities that are for rent. So we're doing a lot of those as well. So a little bit of background of it, what we're doing right now.
That's awesome. So you normally, as an architect and the designer, you work for the developers of these, right?
Yeah,
so
our clients are usually the developers, and on the single family side, even that right now is the developers. In a previous life, I work with homeowners directly. When I was in Raleigh for years, I did a lot of custom residential design before kind of moving on to the multifamily side of design and more of the commercial part of what we do. And on the multifamily side, again, whether it's market rate, student housing, or senior housing, we're doing the amenity areas, we're doing the clubhouses, we're doing all the business offices in these buildings, and we're doing the residential units as well. So we get to see it both sides of the house, where people live and where they, where their home is, and then also their amenity where they might, choose to kind of play and have some business opportunities there and use the amenities as well.
Wow, it's a huge spectrum on that. Because knowing that we're concentrating lighting, I'm just in my head going, wow, the spectrum on the lighting and the kelvins and everything changes from space to space. So, it's kind of interesting. But being on that design part of it, and calling on specifiers like yourself, myself and Melissa concentrate solely on lighting, but I know you've got flooring and wall covering and furniture and so much to do. But, we find that, our tendency is to think that lighting can make or break a space. Anything below the ceiling we consider to be jewelry, or kind of more like the eye candy. And then everything above the ceiling, more of the functional, and I'm highlighting the rest of it. So just kind of curious, when you start your design process and when you're getting to the lighting part of this, and you can expand on this, is it something that comes in first, or is it something that when you're designing that you find that you're designing first and then you do the lighting? Well, I guess you have to because of color renderings and stuff, but on the decorative side of that, do the developers kind of come to you or give you free reign? You kind of, everywhere that you're designing obviously has different styles that they're going for, right? So,
well, the lighting design from a functional need is something that we have to focus on actually very early in the process. We work with a lot of MEP engineers, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers, and we have to actually do our lighting design very, very early in the process, because the drawings have to be coordinated with our MEP engineers and the architectural teams. So the lighting is thought of early. When we're actually doing the initial design of the project, not so much necessarily maybe the selection of the fixtures, although we do that, but architectural placement, because we have to worry about, or think about, I should say, lighting design, and then the mechanical systems, and making sure we've got enough ceiling heights, and making sure that we don't have to drop any soffits and things like that. So we do think of lighting early, and you think of it from a functionally standpoint of, okay, how are we going to light the space to make it either just to function for whatever the use is, whether it's a home or an office or something more hospitality driven. But then also aesthetically, what kind of effect is the lighting going to give to the space, and how is that going to increase or decrease the design that you're doing? So lighting is an important part, even more so these days. All the studies about how light impacts mood and psyche and the physiology of the body and whatnot. So it's very important that lighting is thought of early on. And it's not just a decorative thing, it's a functional thing as well.
Absolutely. Do you, when you're picking that up, I work with MEPs all the time too, just on the specifications, what's new, because we're evolving. Some people would say we're in a lighting revolution right now. Things are changing. It's probably changing more faster, more rapidly, and than it was since the invention of like a metal halide. So do you really, like your lighting reps that come in, because I know that you have them call on you, because I've called on you for years too. Do you depend on them only solely for the decorative? But obviously, as a designer, I've often wondered this, do you depend on the engineers for the architectural, and you just kind of give them the effect, or do you kind of know what aesthetically, architecturally you like, and then they incorporate that in?
Well, I really like lighting reps and manufacturers like yourself, Shelley, that not only provide us the information on the decorative lighting, but training. Like you said, with the lighting, I remember, I started when they did, incandescent, and then fluorescent was all the rage. And then we changed to, halogen, and then we changed to LED. Just when you thought you had one system figured out, then they come up with LED, which is great because you can do a lot with LED. It's energy efficient, and there's lots of different opportunities for different type of lighting effects. But, just like beam spread, for instance, and what your foot candles on the space is going to be. having that training as a designer to know that you need 35-foot candles on a work surface, or, to light a hallway, is really, really important. So I do rely on you guys to help train us as much as you can, and the information that you have from your manufacturers. So, we really like getting lighting CEUs and seminars, not only about what's new in decorative lighting, but how lighting actually works and what it does. You talk
Right.
about CRI, the color rendering index, and people look at a lamp, but the CRI can be different. And if you're in your 90s or 95 range, you're going to get good color rendition, which is so important for a space as well. So
Oh,
I look at it for both sides of the house.
right, right. Okay. Well, that's really great. Do you see any trends right now that you think, because I mean, I look at assisted living, which is just it's a huge market right now. And there's everything with assisted living, from even dementia patients, Alzheimer's, if they're in there. And then you jump over to where our generation and younger, I'll say our generation, are living in the apartment complexes, and what their trends seem to be. Because I feel like 10 years, 5 years, even 5 years ago, multi-housing was designed much differently now than it was then, because it's work, live, play a
Correct.
lot. And then you've got the assisted living where they have color temperatures with their health and that
Correct.
type of thing. So what are you seeing trending right now in that? We'll just stick with the multi-housing right now, since I kind of jumped there.
Well, no, I mean, I think depending on the end user, you have to
Right.
keep in mind, is it an older population, or, because as you age, your eyesight changes and your need for lighting changes quite differently than when you're younger. But on the multifamily side, because we do a lot of amenity design with our clubhouses and our cafes and lounges, it's dramatic too. So we have to create a mood and an atmosphere which is going to be inviting, because a lot of the developers are using these amenities to help sell the lifestyle that the residents are going to have. But the biggest, I wouldn't call it a trend, but I guess the biggest shift is happened in housing is because of COVID. Working from home, that is a thing. I mean, I'm doing it right now. We're talking from my home versus my office. And, and 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't even really know what all that was. So, now we're doing this. So a lot of our amenities are, we're business centers, we're starting to shrink. Now they're coming back. We're also thinking about how we can design places in the residential units, the apartments, where people can stay and work from home. Do you need a little desk area? Okay, so you have a desk. What kind of lighting is in that area?
Sure.
Everybody's going to have to buy a lamp, or can you provide a little recessed lamp or a wall sconce or something like that will provide lighting, the correct lighting for someone to work from home? So that's probably been the biggest shift in our industry, is just working from home and adopting to that new reality. Still like being in the office. We still have that kind of working in the office and also working from home flexibility. But, people and businesses need to be that flexible.
Right. I've heard when speaking with some of the multi-housing specifiers that I work with, including that 2,700, which is so odd because it took so long to perfect the 3,000 and everybody was just mainstream 3,000. But I've heard there's this huge trend towards 2,700, not only in the functional lighting, but also making sure if it is a screw-in aftermarket lamp, that it definitely is provided at 2,700K.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, it goes back to creating a mood and also relaxing. To me, it feels more of a spa, a little bit more luxury when you walk into a space and you're not underneath the 3,000K or above. And so are you seeing the development?
Well, so coming back to Charlotte, we bought a house, moved into our house, and we had probably, I think, 40 different recessed can lights in our house. And of course they were reflector bulbs and they were, not very good color. So the first thing I went out, I took out all the recessed lights and just the bulbs, just the lamps. And I went out and I bought LED lamps, and they were 2,700K. And because I wanted that warm, inviting feeling to the house, it instantly changed the feeling of our home. And I walk around our neighborhood and I still see some people that have the 3,000 or even, God forbid, like 4,000 or something, where it looks like a hospital, and great for hospital environments, but not for residential. So the the color temperature is really an important thing. And one thing in multifamily, some mistakes I see, we have these long hallways and these long corridors. So in a corridor, you have your general lighting, which is in the ceiling, and that's lighting the ambient lighting, giving the overall effect for the corridors. But then you might have a wall sconce at each unit entrance. And I see all the time how the ambient lighting might be, I don't know, above 3000 K, and the sconces are 2700 K. And in the same hallway, you've got different colors going on that changes the wall colors, the textures. It's a mess. And that's one of the biggest faults I see with manufacturers and designers when they don't think about the different types of light sources and the light it's putting out.
Absolutely. And, different manufacturers may have a binding process that's slightly off. How important are you seeing that people are preferring like an integrated, as it's getting perfected, an integrated LED? Or in those common areas, do you still prefer, I know the architectural a lot of times is integrated. On the decorative, are you still seeing a lot of where they want to do the screw in light bulbs?
Yeah, and again, with LED technology, which has been fantastic and is probably going to, continue to improve. But, we have rated corridors, meaning that they have to be fire rated, usually a 2-hour assembly in the ceiling or something like that. And, when you start penetrating the ceiling, you've got to have light boxes or light, enclosures that allow that fire rating to be maintained. So by having these LED fixtures, which are super thin, and you can attach them to the ceiling plane without penetrating the ceiling, that's huge. So, LED has given us opportunities to create more types of lighting and different types of lighting environments without necessarily affecting, any fire ratings or other things like that. So, I mean, you still have to be careful and you still have to look for it, but, it's given us more opportunities. So it's really exciting what LED is doing and changing how we can use lighting.
Right. And, and just having the flexibility of it and like that fire rated, I think it's exciting to see now that we are coming out, or factories are coming out with recessed cans now, so that you don't have to break the plane where it's obvious, that already have the built-in fire rating, which is nice.
Yes.
Because it doesn't break that ceiling plane and you can keep the decorative for that part of it. So that's kind of interesting on there, and just having the dimming. Because I'm seeing on a lot of schedules nowadays, because we still have more decorative that I would say we still have more decorative where you have to screw in a lamp, and I'm seeing it called out 2700 K. I think that's great. Do you ever get requested, or do you ever think that, okay, we need to go ahead and specify which lamp manufacturer we want to make sure it's consistent? Or is it just kind of like, that the 27s are going to pretty fall in good hue? And they do.
I used to, I'll be honest with you, I used to, back in the halogen days and in the incandescent days, I used to actually specify the lamp and the manufacturer of the lamp. I've gotten away from that a little bit and maybe just relying on the technology. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but, and then we have our go-tos as far as who we like to use for different types of lighting fixtures and lamps, and they perform really well. And, going to lighting shows and different types of HD or BDNY, things like that, where there's manufacturers out there, or light fair things, where you can see the types of lighting and the quality of lamp that you're providing as well as good. But right now I don't have a specific manufacturer that I use. Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of that. That's why I was asking you. I just see the Kelvin. So that's why I was wondering. I don't see a whole lot of that on there. But as a lighting rep that calls on you and does that, is there anything that you is it across the board that you're asked for? Is there, or do you have, and you don't have to mention them, but do you have go-to manufacturers that you always know, okay, they're going to have quality, they're going to deliver this, that, and the other? Or is it just kind of like getting on the internet or relying on your reps and just kind of across the board?
I mean, I think just like any product, designers have their go-tos, whether it's flooring or furniture or lighting, things like that. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of it depends on the product. Obviously, you've got to have good product, but then you also have to have a good rep, someone that's going to call on you and be consistent and be there, for the technology and, the ordering. When you start getting and ordering fixtures, we do a lot of specification where we're not purchasing the fixtures, because some of our projects literally have hundreds, if not thousands of fixtures. One student housing project might have 300 or 400 units, and each unit might have several beds in them. So, think about all the rooms. That could be 1,000 different light fixtures in one project. So there's a lot going on. So, we don't have our go-tos, but I mean, we do have our go-tos, but I think it's important to have a rep that is responsive, who calls on you, has a technical ability as well as providing good product.
Yeah. Okay. That makes total sense. Cause I'm like, again, just the education part of it and the CEUs on it, cause it just changes constantly.
Absolutely.
I know. I'm seeing a trend, or I wanted to see, do you like to do a lot of custom? I know this is kind of going over, but I'm seeing this trend in like public areas, especially in the entry, like, the atriums when you walk in, or maybe the fitness room. I'm seeing a big thing in the fitness room or anything like that, where you want to do more systems or possibly do more custom. Cause I think the custom's fun
Mhm.
and doesn't necessarily go through what we call that VE process quite as
Sure.
fast. Because we started on the beginning. Do you like to do a lot of the custom fixtures?
Off and on, and I think it's more in special areas, like you said, where you might have a larger entry or a specialty feature. The word custom tends to scare people. It
I like
definitely it definitely scares our developers, because they're going to think, oh my gosh, that means money, through the roof. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that though. So, but I think creating something unique and something that's a placemaker for
Mhm.
a project is a good idea. And again, having a great manufacturer that you can work with, and it's
Right.
easy to do, and it's not, if it becomes a headache, it's not fun. If it becomes easy, it's fun. And the less stress you can add to it, the better for the overall use and the use by the designer.
Right. Well, I mean, I've touched a lot, I mean, on the lighting part of it, but as far as doing the designs and what you do, what is your favorite part of that? Just the entire project?
Oh boy, that's a big question. Often we're involved early in the process where there's
Sure.
a developer, and we have these visioning sessions, and we like to be involved with the architects. Since we're an integrated firm with architecture and interiors, literally right next to me, and the next office down is one of our senior architects. So we work closely together. But being involved in that process early on is fun, because that's where a lot of the creativity happens, and then you move into more of designing developing the design, and then moving into construction documents. It sounds crazy, but I really like the whole process. I mean, I certainly like the end result when you see the
Yeah.
finished product. And you mentioned VE. I don't know if you've ever invented that word, but they need to go away.
Yeah.
Value engineering, where I guess there's value to it because it's saving costs, but it is a thing. It's a reality. Obviously, there's a budget, and there's a need for a performance of somebody selling that product to somebody else. And but I always think, let's go back to our reps when we're specifying a product. If there's VE involved, don't just have the contractor or somebody else arbitrarily make those changes. I always say, fight for your design. So go back to your manufacturer and say, okay, we can't spend $1,500 on this fixture. Is there a way to VE the fixture, or do you have an alternate selection that we can get it for $1,200 or something like that? Let's try to make that work, because you guys work hard for what you do. And and when we work on a design, we already have something in mind. So getting your feedback and your assistance is a help, not a hindrance. So I always like to go back to you guys.
And it's really great as a representative of lighting to be in on the beginning, because when we take these plans, because I know you can't call your rep every time you're specifying them or using it, that just takes too much time. But if we are in on the beginning part of it, we already know quantities. We've already spoken with the factory. We already know we're going to try to do some kind of discount, or, we're going to do mass quantity on that. Or if it's working with a developer, that they're going to do 3 or 4 different projects. We're going to kind of mimic some things so we can already get that pricing control and try to be involved with that, because we are also involved with the suppliers. So we can all really tend to work more as a team to get the project done for you. And that's where the electrical and the MEPs come in too, because we have some great lighting engineers that really try to hold it as much as possible and keep you all involved in that. But going over, so we're going to switch a little bit from multi-housing, because I know here in the Carolinas, we do, if we have time, we do have a lot of senior living. And I feel like senior living, again, just like multi-housing, is coming is coming around to be a little bit more, maybe not as institutional.
Totally.
Are you finding that?
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah. And I've done several several senior living projects here in the Carolinas, and elsewhere, a few others too. So familiar with the senior living. It's amenity rich right now, and will continue to be that. The baby boomer population is the largest retiring population and most wealthy population in the history of the United States. So the people are used to, myself included, certain lifestyle and things, and as far as amenities. So they're very amenity rich. There's lounges, there's cafes, there's even hair salons and spas and things like that. And if you're able to be independent and have a great lifestyle, but maybe not worry about having a home where you have to take care of everything and cut the grass every day and do all that. These I don't want to call them senior living. They're more they're lifestyle kind of projects. I know that there's a lot of different developers focusing on this. Again, it's a huge market. It's going to continue to grow and flourish. I see them both in the city areas of different cities that I've traveled, and I see them more suburban as well. So there's lots of different product, but yeah, it's very amenity rich, with lots of different amenities, and hence the lighting needs for those are pretty strong as well.
Yeah, because that goes right back into the aging eyes. Because it's going to be 2,700, but then again, aging eyes is an epidemic that we
Well,
all.
I didn't wear glasses until I was in my 40s. I won't tell you how old I am right now, but so I didn't have these on initially years ago. So as we get older, we definitely, our eyes change. Yeah.
I know. I mean, I remember the exact day that I had to actually go like that and realize I just did that. So it only got worked downhill from there, So,
Yeah.
but as far as the senior living, you're seeing that go everywhere. Do you see people maybe migrating more to the South due to weather? Just curious.
Yeah, I've done some market studies. We have to kind of plan for our years, like kind of come up with a business plan, and you look at different trends. And for whatever reason, there's still migration from the Northeast to the Southeast and even the Southwest. Call it based on climate, but again, you hear about the climate change, and I don't know, maybe we'll be all moving to the north again one day. I don't know, but right now that is still happening. I mean, here in Charlotte, it's booming. We have I forget the last stat I read, like over 100 people a day moving to the city. It's crazy. I was in Raleigh for years. Raleigh is booming. When I was in Austin, Texas, I worked in Austin, Texas for a number of years. That city continues to explode and grow. So there is a migration happening, both young and older demographics.
Right. Well, it's crazy here. I just did, not to refer back, I did a topic for the Illuminating Engineering Society here, and we did it just solely on multi-housing, the V process, the word we hate. And it's just funny I've found from city to city too, how some cities, it sticks because of what they want done, and then in others it's a huge VE process on the whole thing. So it's funny how from city to city that changes, and I don't really know what causes that.
Yeah. Well, I know we were facing this in Austin, with different codes that were put in place, but even in Charlotte and in Raleigh land, I mean, there's only so much land in the city center or even close to the city areas. So it's harder to find properties. And when you do, you're going more vertical than horizontal because you're trying to fit more people on one piece of land. So, but then that's why a lot of, like Charlotte is growing. The suburbs are growing leaps and bounds. And when I was in Raleigh, the same thing as well. And Austin, the city of Austin is a great city, but to drive in, I was outside the city probably about 35, 40 minutes, but on a bad day, it took over an hour to get downtown. So, and we're facing that in Charlotte as well. So,
yeah, Charlotte's a beast to drive around at times. I will say that.
Well, I grew up in Washington, D.C., so I'm familiar with driving the Baltimore Beltway the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore Beltways all the time. And, it was always busy. And, and that was many, many years ago. So I guess it just comes with the territory.
Right. I have one more question, and then I would like for you, if you have time, to expand on your book. But just talking about the age of internet, we have designers of all parts that use it. It's easy to go on to kind of Google your look and to do it. Of course, the reps can call on you, and we bring in samples and stuff. But do you ever utilize, like, other than the shows, do you find it ever important to walk into? We know there's specialty places, that will go. Do you find that useful to walk in, or do you find that the shows do enough of that for you?
Um, it's funny. I think we all took a break from going to all the trade shows because of COVID, and now
Sure.
they're back and whatnot, and been starting to venture out to those again. We have some great lighting showrooms here in Charlotte.
Mhm.
Certainly in Austin, I went to showrooms in Raleigh as well, and in DC too. So I think it is important to go out and see product and see what you're specifying. So
Mhm.
I do like, I think we spent some time in different places during Furniture Market in High Point. We went to a
Sure.
couple of lighting showrooms, and I think it's really valuable to do that. Um, so the lighting shows are good. I know a lot of reps, when they travel, they bring different product to our offices, and
Yes.
it's there's only so many fixtures you can carry, but it's good to see things like that. But it is a lot of time and effort on your part to do
Mhm.
that. So, but I think it's important to see. So
Yeah, I do too. I wish that the brick and mortar, and I think they are starting to do more lifestyle, and then just lighting labs. I mean, I can bring a can in, I can bring a linear system in, show it for you, turn it on, do that. But what an experience when you can walk in and actually see it on and off and dim, and to do that, and the technology, because it's technology driven market now. So, yes, we do bring our products in, but it's kind of nice to see them installed, which you do see them at the end of the project.
absolutely.
I'd
Uh,
love to hear a little bit, if you have time, if you
yeah.
want to expand on something, or a little bit about your upcoming book.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny. The idea hit me about a year ago. I've been in this business a long time, and I've worked. I've owned three businesses, and been in design for over 35 years now, and had the privilege of serving as chair of the ASID National Board of Directors, heavily involved with the American Society of Interior Designers. I've had all these experiences, and but I was a student once. So I was a student many, many years ago in Washington, D.C. And I've always enjoyed, talking to students, and I've gone around to different universities and done some talks on things. But I started thinking about, my career path is kind of unique. I think a little bit. I think everybody's unique, but um, from starting my own firm to having business partners to being involved with larger firms, to traveling to different cities and working in those different environments. So I started thinking, if nothing more, just for me to remember all the different things I've done and the people I've worked with. So I'm kind of creating this. I haven't really come up with the title, but it's kind of my journey in design, and
Mhm.
how I persevered through three recessions and up markets, down markets, all sorts of different things. And here I am, still in the profession. I still love what I do. I still like the fact that we get to create something pretty much every day. Get to work with some great people, get to see some things all over the country and travel. Through ASID, I was able to travel internationally and do some things, which was great. Um, so I feel like maybe it's an opportunity for me to give back and to let people know, maybe younger designers or people
Yes.
that are in school that are coming up into the world of design, that your path is going to change, and it's not as linear as it used to be decades ago. But that's okay. There's a lot of things that you can do to kind of evolve your career and continue to make an impact and make a living. That's what we have to
Mhm.
do as well. So the idea came to me about documenting and kind of creating a not a journal necessarily, but an idea of my travel and design throughout my decades of being involved. So I'm hoping I'm I got to work a lot on it. I'll tell you, Shelley, it's still a work in process, but I'm hoping to get it maybe all wrapped up sometime in 23, and who knows, maybe if you want to have me on again, I'll talk about the book sometime or
Oh, I
something.
would love that. I mean, I do think for the younger generation, it's good to have some current role models. And like you said, three recessions and learning how to pivot not to discourage. That's my biggest thing, even in the sales. It's just learning how to pivot, because we ebb and
Right.
flow through these times. And, don't give up. Don't give up,
Yeah.
keep going forward. So that's, I think I would love to have you on when it gets done. I want to hear more about this as you
Okay.
get into
Yeah.
it, because I know it takes time and you're already busy.
Well,
So,
yeah, but this has been kind of fun, and I'm just kind of taking it piece by piece, and it's also fun because it starts bringing back memories that I haven't thought of in a long time. When I worked for a small architecture firm in Bethesda, Maryland, years ago, and I remember, it was all hand drawn. We didn't have computers back then. That's how old I am. But sitting at my drafting table and drawing wall sections or details or things like that, and it was cool. So I just again, it's a path, it's a different journey. And for whatever reason, I think my journey might be interesting to some people. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
well, nowadays you can get on there and use a SketchUp, and actually now most manufacturers where you can put the placement.
Yeah.
Before you had to just have this imagination that that's what it was like. So I'm like, wow, this is great.
Well,
I mean,
and to that point, thank you for bringing that up. We have some incredible technology, artificial intelligence, and all the different types that you can think. So now you can, like you said, we can create spaces virtually and have the lighting impact that in the virtual reality that we're looking at. So, and clients are expecting that now, especially on larger commercial projects. They're expecting a walkthrough of the space before it's even built or fully designed. So, having lighting as part of that is huge. So, hopefully you guys are continuing to involve your technology to allow us to integrate that into our artificial.
Oh, absolutely. I have several
Yeah.
manufacturers that I work with that actually have Revit files and SketchUp files it's just so important. Specifiers would say before, if we don't plug it in there, we have no idea in the end what's going to end up in there. But if they can visually see it, then it makes more sense. So, and the last thing, and then I promise I'll let you go, but being that we're on this educational side and we are representatives, and being that you are so highly involved with the ASID, do you I guess, could you give any suggestions other than, I know we used to do a lot of tabletop trade shows and, have local, not necessarily on the bigger, but on the lighting, I remember it used to be, and I need to make sure I'm right on this. I think you maybe had like one class that was pretty in depth about lighting going through the education. So, being more involved in ASID, are you seeing more ASID members really start to embrace the lighting?
I
You get in there and
don't.
teach them.
Well, I don't know fully, but I think, what I would challenge you all to do as lighting manufacturers and reps is to go to the universities and see if you can have like a day-long seminar, or, see if you can, come in once a semester or twice or three times a semester and do a lighting class for the designers, because, again, there's a lot of different things we have to think about other than lighting, and, the form, the function, the materials, code issues, egress issues, but lighting as well. So, I challenge you guys to make yourself available to help, educate these young designers and architects about how lighting can impact a space. I think going on that, having you all come to also our offices as well. And,
Yeah.
I always like, I know you have to talk product, and that's what you're there for, because you have to make a living too, and you got to sell product. But at the same time, I always like to couple that with, continuing education units and what we can do to get educated on design, or whatever the topic is. So, but I think getting those young designers early on and having them understand the importance of the lighting design, I think would be huge.
I think that they are starting to get pay a little bit more attention to it. So it is good. So to CEUs, one thing I will say that has gotten really good about that is, one thing COVID did do is forced a lot of people to do a lot more Zooms and a lot more virtual CEUs, which sometimes makes it easier. Now I like coming to visit the office because I like the relationships and getting right there involved in it. But
Sure.
I thank you so much for getting on. Is there anything you'd like to say here at the end? Do you think we covered
No,
it all?
I really appreciate this. This has been fun. I thank you.
Can I ask you, I have a California question, a really quick California question. We always want to know. So we do a lot of multifamily housing here, as you can imagine, because the land is expensive. We have a lot of senior living going up, especially in the Sacramento surrounding areas, because there are a couple of big hospitals. up there just in case. So we see that area growing. When you do a package, even it doesn't even have to be light, including lighting, your package, is there a severe cut in the budget because the land and the codes, between the codes and the lands and the compliance, does it look different, or is ours less robust than something that would happen in the East Coast?
It's funny. So I'm actually working on a project in San Ramon right now, California.
Okay.
We have an office in Sacramento and Orange County and LA, and I'm working with it's a hair salon, actually, if you believe that. And the biggest challenge I found on dealing with California is the permitting. It's been the codes and the permitting process we've had to go through. We have had a project in permit now probably for 3 months. And the same type of project, we're doing one in Massachusetts right now. They're already halfway into construction. And, and we pretty much permitted or tried to permit around the same time. So I'm not blaming California. California has some really great codes, but they're also very stringent and quite different. Lighting for California has kind of been leading the way in terms of, I think they require now a lot of residential interiors. If you have to use LED lamps, no more incandescent lamps at all for new construction, things like that. So, to California's benefit, you guys are leading the way a lot in terms of energy consumption and lighting design, but also the permitting process from our standpoint has taken a little bit longer.
Interesting.
Is that helpful, Melissa? Yeah.
That is helpful. We always we kind of want to know, we live in our own world out here sometimes. And because the codes are so different, takes a long time. And we always like to know how we are doing relative to the rest of the country or to other states in the country. So
we love California, but it just takes a little bit more time.
Yes. Patience.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Tim. Keep me, I'm sure I'll see you and we'll talk, but keep us up to date with the book.
Yes.
So, and we would definitely like to have you back on, and I guess have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Shelley and Melissa. I appreciate it and enjoyed talking with you both.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into our podcast, Light Waves, a deep dive into all things lighting with a side of design. If we've left you wanting more, please hit the subscribe button, or you can follow us on any of your favorite social or podcast platforms. Thanks again.